Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, this is a very special moment. The Vienna Institute for National Economics Studies, the wiiw or WIIW, or as we call it, just to confuse you all, I'm very happy to have the pleasure to host this Institute's national annual spring seminar on the occasion of this remarkable anniversary. The fact that such a notable festivity celebrated as the Oestereichische Nationalbank premises today corroborates and optimizes the close and long-standing relationship between ÖNB, the Central Bank of Austria, and the Institute, one of Europe's leading think tanks. 50 years of research and analysis of the countries of Central and Eastern and Southern Europe, CESE as we call them, mean that wiiw has accompanied the region over half a century in many different phases to which Mr. Streri already alluded to, and has led fundamental and far-reaching political and economic changes have taken place. Back in the 1960s, and against the background of East-West confrontation, the really very, very happy idea was born to establish an institutional platform for which scientific exchange and cooperation between economists and economic policymakers from both sides of the Iron Curtain could take place, and immediately and a great idea. Amongst strong tensions between the rivaling camps of the wiiw was able to manage to become an acknowledged center of expertise and encounter between East and West. And this has enabled, as we've already heard, and facilitated important contacts on both sides of the boundaries and of very different political systems. Then, however, at the turn of the last decade of the 20th century, people thought throughout this, on the other side, Iron Curtain, that they rose up against the government authoritarian regimes and helped bring the Berlin Wall down in concrete and the Iron Curtain in figurative terms. The long-lasting decision of the European continent, war times terminated, and a long time and thorny journey of transition from totalitarian values and centrally planned, controlled, and mostly state-owned economies to the more liberal democracies and market economies began. And the Vienna Institute has accompanied and energetically supported this unprecedented process of social, political, and economic overhaul in the region. Yet, after more than 3 decades of deepening convergence and integration, I'm sorry to say that the Russian invasion to Ukraine has brought about a new shocking fundamental game changer. Apart from the immense human tragedy and vast material damage the war and its future aftermath risked that new fault lines in Europe, and that again an irreconcilable divided continent may be in for some time. But let me focus from the surrounding geographical situation to the institution itself, which is celebrating its jubilee, the Vienna Institute for National Economic Studies. And as mentioned by the scientific director, Robert Sterer, the Institute stands off and started off as a department of the Austrian Institute for Economic Research before it became an independent institute under the current name. The early days leading to the foundation of the Institute as an independent think tank were shaken by political turbulences, the Prague Spring and the anti-Semitic repression in Poland. This had a direct impact on the Institute's founding history in two ways. On the one hand, it underlined the importance of dedicating attention and resources to in-depth scientific and systemic analysis of the countries forming the Eastern Bloc, whose economic situation had not been systematically assessed scientifically in Austria, and hence it was necessary to establish East-West economic research first. On the other hand, the Institute was an ideal place to give shelter to scientists who had to flee their home countries behind the Iron Curtain, and thus it set ground for a great brain power and intrinsic knowledge of these countries under study at the Institute. I personally have known the Institute as a place of lively and sometimes heated discussion, to which I'm glad I could contribute, especially in the early years of transition of Eastern Europe. One should not forget already that under the communist side, the CZ economists displayed a great deal of heterogeneity in terms of structure and duration under communist experience, and the extent to which market elements were present in the central planning system, and the level of economic development, the sector specialization, and the degree of macroeconomic imbalances which existed at the outset of the transition period. Yet, despite this heterogeneity, the recipe for transition given from the outside was rather uniform at first, advocating stabilization, liberalization, and privatization. It was the agenda of the so-called Washington Consensus that was originally developed for supporting crisis-ridden Latin American economies in the 1980s. However, it was rather difficult, if not impossible, to reach stabilization when institutions have to build almost from scratch those institutions at the same time. The process of institution building is lengthy and can extend over decades, as we know today. Yet at the same time, stabilization could not wait and had to mature swifter in order to limit the hardship and economic crisis in the early years of transition. And this called for thorough knowledge under the underlying starting conditions, an understanding of the past economic structure, and tailor-made economic policy advice on the case-by-case basis. And the Vienna Institute was in possession of all the necessary elements and well suited to provide the analytical base for this advice. It could offer comparable data of these economies already prior to the transformation. It provided expertise from researchers with intrinsic knowledge of the CZ countries, and it could build on the framework of academics extending into both hemispheres. And this laid the basis for sound and impartial policy advice. There are many cases where the Institute's management and staff were under contract by governments in the region as well as in Brussels to advise the European Commission. And for example, Professor Landesmann, a former university colleague, was appointed member of the group of economic policy advisors under the chairmanship of the former EU Commissioner, President Romano Prodi. Apart from this excellent human capital, there's another asset which makes the Institute outstanding. It is the database. For half a century, the Institute's database, and in particular the WIIW Handbook of Statistics, are serving as the source of reference for economic analysis for almost all researchers specializing in CZ region, including my colleagues at the Austrian National Bank. A distinguishing feature of the database by the Vienna Institute is the fact that these are compiled from primary sources of the 23 focus countries. The data is made comparable across countries and carefully checked and ensuring the underlying concepts and definitions are in line with the international standards. Data series are updated on a regular basis. Nowadays, you have not to wait for 12 months to appear. You can have them as they arrive and you can download them. Time series usually go back to 1989, but in some cases even to the early 1960s. Besides the annual and monthly database, the Institute also pioneered foreign direct investment and trade data. The FDI database contained the most comprehensive collection of indicators reflecting capital linkages between CZ countries and the rest of the world. And it was already alluded to the world input-output data database to which the Vienna Institute is a major contributor, has become a standard in the literature on trade in values added and is widely used by researchers not only in Europe but across the world. Also, research conducted at ONB often builds on this data, and our researchers value the reliability and the cross-country comparability of the data. I may add that more recently, the researchers of Institute done also to Austrian national data, such as the micro data on our survey on euro, on the financial behavior and of private individuals in CZ countries and the use of the euro. Against this background of what I've just said, it becomes evident that Vienna Institute provides a wide range of public goods. Despite the focus on CZ countries, these public goods do not only serve the region, but is of special importance for Austrian economy, given its strong economic, cultural, and historic links to the countries in Central, Eastern, and Southern Europe. I'm proud to say that the Austrian National Bank has supported and accompanied wiiw's development in various ways from the very beginning. I will elaborate on it in a minute. As one of the major shareholders, the ÖNB is also a board member, and I personally have the honor to be the vice president of the board of directors. This role gives me a prima vista perspective and to witness that the Institute has evolved into highly esteemed research institute internationally with an extensive and profound expertise in Central, Eastern, and Southern Europe economies and their economic policies. Yet this is rather an exceptional achievement, not only in Austria, not only in Europe, but worldwide. Indeed, and this was alluded to it, but I want to be more specific, in a comprehensive ranking compiled by the University of Pennsylvania, wiiw ranks among the top 3 international economic policy think tanks of the world. He was too shy to mention this one. Such an admirable triumph testifies the Institute's superior innovative research and strategies which helped facilitate cooperation between relevant stakeholders and eventually improve the overall quality of life of countries of the expertise. The fact that Institute has continuously improved the rating since 2012, they started out at number 17 and worked their way up to number 3. And I think to being included in such a way, I think it's great. While this is just the most visible and concrete impact indicator, there are several others which demonstrate that the Vienna Institute has continuously been striving for excellence of its research analytical work. For instance, the number of articles was referred to it. It started out with 1 article in a scientific journal, and last year they had 23 articles in highly rated scientific journals, another achievement to which I think the whole institute and the leadership can be congratulated. Remarkably, this impressive increase, which has accelerated particularly over the last 10 to 15 years, has been achieved with a broad and constant numbers of researchers over the same period, which means, how to say, that the competence and capacity of the Institute has developed accordingly. However, let me stress an important aspect at this point. While the Institute has accumulated this outstanding expertise in Central, Eastern and Southern Europe, it has also, as the ONB, the Central Bank of Austria. The Austrian National Bank also looks back to more than 3 decades of high-level analysis and monitoring of the CESE region, and we do it from a slightly different angle, and it is also one of the outstanding competitive advantages. So when colleagues at the Council of the ECB have a question about their Central, Eastern and Southern Europe, they direct it to us, so they build on our knowledge and the knowledge on the Institute to reply accordingly. And I'm also proud to claim that I was the first of the current ONB members that has worked analytically and policy-wise in CESE countries. 34 years ago it started out, and at this time as a mission member also to Poland, which gave me, how to say, my first understanding of those countries. Hence, a very efficient division of labor between the Institute and the ONB has developed over the years, guided by respective comparative advantages. The Institute has focused predominantly on the real economy and structural issues, especially on topics related to foreign direct investment, EU funds, productivity, but also labor, migration, income distribution, regional development. Complementarily, experts among my staff members have concentrated on the financial aspect, monetary policy, financial stability, and banking sectors developments in the CESE region. Naturally, this efficient division of labor does not preclude overlaps such as catching up, convergence, productivity, where the analytical interest on both sides is strong. Yet the Institute and the OMB do not only productively complement each other, they do also collaborate fruitfully. In several joint analytical projects, staff from both institutions are called in each other's research, for example, on foreign direct investment, people's attitudes towards public sector debt, and most recently on the motive industry in the CESE countries. This was a great conference last year. Joint research is not the only area where Institute and the ONB collaborate. On the contrary, we look back on a long period of cooperation which extends to many aspects of our work and on a whole range of perspectives. Let me illustrate them with a couple of examples. Regularly, ahead of the biannual forecasts press conference, a very active exchange concerning economic outlook takes place, and the experts on both sides, meet over the so-called experts' breakfast. The Institute And the ÖNB hosts and organizes the joint economic lectures, which are designed to present pressing issues of global economic interest by eminent researchers to a wider public. And we host regularly the spring conference as it takes place here. And we mutually contribute to each other's seminars, workshops, conferences, and to the courses of the joint Vienna Institute. Speaking of the latter, let me make a small side remark on this point. The joint Vienna Institute, JVI as it is called, is celebrating or celebrated already this year the 30th anniversary. It is another success story in Vienna's landscape of economic institutions. The courses taught at the JVI represent an efficient platform for professional networking and exchange of experiences. They also provide unique opportunity for open discussion with other colleagues, peers and professionals, and to help them to develop optimal policy decisions and managerial skills. Furthermore, the participation of the courses is an impetus for personal growth. And as a result, nowadays, the figure I heard during the celebration of the 30 years, more than 20,000 people from Central and Eastern Europe have participated in this course, and among them a number of presidents, prime ministers, ministers, and administrative staff for these countries. So I think for many of these countries, Vienna is known through the Vienna Institute, to which, the institute here contributes since 1999 the implementation of evaluation of its courses. Thank you very much for this great work what you're doing. And as all these examples I've just mentioned suggest that we are closely intertwined with the Institute in terms of work. However, as I mentioned before, and as it's mentioned, we're also intertwined because with regard to the financing, the Minister of Finance comes first, and then comes the Austrian National Bank in order to support this institute. And what we have to say, that's an important part of our work, and so we are gladly to make this financing available and to help to develop the basic strategy, the basic knowledge of the institute. And and another aspect, of course, is that as you may know, we have the Jubilee Fund, which was created by the Austrian National Bank. At the time, it celebrated its 150th birthday anniversary. And the Jubilee Fund is quite some money. It's between 6 and 8 million euros per year, which is distributed. Since I arrived here, it's distributed, focused on economics only. But the important thing is that since 1992, the WIW has completed 62 studies, so they have applied competitively, and they have won. And currently, they have 6 other projects under management, which shows how to say their competitiveness internationally. To wrap up, we are currently facing a whole battery of urgent and not only economic issues which you have to deal with to look ahead. This includes, but are not confined to, the aftermath of the economic implications of the pandemic and of the war in Ukraine, drivers of inflation, the related questions whether, how, and how strongly monetary policy should react, enlargement of the euro area and of the EU, which is an important decision to take in the next few weeks. As you heard, Croatia has the go-ahead, and the decision is pending, but should be positive. Economic implications for the climate change and green policies. We have the minister on this later on this morning. These and many other topics will keep us all busy in the years to come. We all, certainly including the policymakers in CC countries, will deeply appreciate the analytical support and guidance which we will able to provide to help us navigate through the stormy waters which are ahead of us. The Institute and its expertise will be high in demand, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing how it will help shape the economic policy debate of all these exciting issues in the years to come. So I want to close by congratulating again the Institute to its impressive achievements over the last 50 years and wishing them all the best for the at least next 50 years. Last but not least, I wish us all a fruitful and inspiring conference. Happy birthday.